3:05 a.m., the witching hour, on the morn of the spring equinox. 5 best friends in a borrowed minivan gazed down the grim and eerily quiet road leading to Stull, Kansas. Even in the dead of night, they expected maybe a late night or early morning 9-to-5er, or the blue and green flicker of television light bouncing off eggshell white living room walls, creeping out of drawn plastic blinds. But there was nothing. On the left side of the aptly named Stull Road are 3 occupied homes, quaint and inviting, followed by the Stull United Methodist Church, the Stull Post Office, and the church pantry. After that, 2 more turn-of-the-century homes. To the right, occupying exactly half of this unincorporated community, surrounded by a 6-foot chain-link fence and patrolled by county deputies and a canine unit, is the Stull Cemetery. Ghostly wisps of dense fog blanket the road, making it seem an almost pulsing, living thing, sentient and eager for visitors. It slithers in anticipation. The hazy broom wafting right to left wraps itself protectively around the homes and buildings, while at the same time drawing their attention to the cemetery gates and the ruins of the Evangelical Emmanuel Church, the crumbled neatest of this rumored gateway to hell. Fancying themselves amateur ghost hunters, at least for this, their latest attempt to quell the post-college, pre-adult continuum that they had found themselves loathing and yet thriving in, they sit at the zenith of Stull Road, plotting their infiltration. Minutes pass as they get their timing down on the patrols and work up the nerve to scale the fence. It is agreed that there will be no vandalism or tomfoolery here. This was a serious and sober quest to uncover the mysteries of a local legend that had garnered worldwide interest and fame. With deep breaths, dirty jokes, and excuses out of the way, and nothing else to stall them, the quintet poured out the sliding side door, having covered the dome light with an old handkerchief. Yes, they'd thought of everything, and stealthily made their way along the eastern fence approximately 200 yards behind the guard as he made his rounds. Dead trees and decorative stoneworks lined the approach. Cobwebs, overgrown vines and hedgeworks, and an owl's cryptic questions of who greeted them as they neared. This had once been a lovely place of solitude, rest, and remembrance, but that was a long time ago. Now it is a haunted and broken place that even the Pope dares not tread. Welcome everyone to another episode of The Great American Urban Legend. I am your host, as always, Micah, and along with my beautiful wife and co-host Amanda, we bring you a new and exciting urban legend found right here in these United States every single Friday at 9 p.m. This episode is very special because the intro there was a bit of my first-hand account of visiting Stull way back in 2003 with some friends of mine. It was such a fun and exhilarating experience that I will never forget it, and we will shortly get back to it. But I wanted to take some time here and say thank you to everyone who is supporting us. You guys are awesome and are the reason that we're able to keep doing what we're doing. Thank you to everyone who is giving us a chance and listening, downloading, and following. You guys are great. Thank you to everyone who is following what we're doing on Instagram and engaging with us there. Make sure you go to our Instagram page and get signed up for our free giveaway. You'll automatically receive an awesome T-Gulp bookmark.
Here we go.
Have you bought into that at all yet?
No, and just seeing it makes me cringe.
It's pretty gross to see, but it's so much easier to say.
Oh,
I hated typing it every time, but gosh, it's so much easier to say. I'm not saying the bookmarks are gross. The bookmarks are beautiful, but the just the word T-Gulp that I have here in my notes is it's pretty gross. But you'll automatically receive a T-Gulp bookmark and be signed up for a free T-Gulp mug as well, and those mugs are awesome. I've put some pictures up on Instagram, so go check those out. The giveaway ends on Friday, November 13th, and the winner will be announced during that special Friday the 13th episode. Make sure you follow us and leave a review on your podcast player of choice, too. That really helps. So, you remember us doing this.
I do. It was probably a couple of years before our oldest daughter was born.
Yeah, it was a while ago. So, I was thinking 2003, yes?
That's pretty accurate.
Yeah. And you know most of the guys you know all the guys that went pretty well, considering they stayed at our home nonstop for about a year.
Right. So in the early years of our marriage, we basically lived in a bachelor pad.
the early year, the first year of our marriage, right? Or was it?
Yeah, it was a few, actually. I don't know. I think it was more than one.
Was it?
We had a group of guys that just kind of called our home their home. And
It was great.
awesome. Yeah, it was fun.
They were wonderful, wonderful guys, and I love every one of them. So yeah, a lot of good memories there. Playing Halo, listening to hip hop we had no business listening to, shooting each other with airsoft guns. We still found those pellets. I mean, even 15 years later, when we were planning on moving, we still found some of those airsoft pellets when we like pulled carpet and things like that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys destroyed our house.
Yeah.
With those stupid airsoft guns.
Yeah, that was crazy. Okay, so I just want to add a small disclaimer here. This episode was supposed to be our launch episode for our Patreon page, but we decided to hold off on an official launch for that and release it here instead because the story is just so good. It was so much fun. That being said, I did go back and do some editing and tried to make it as family friendly as possible, and I think it is. But maybe the heavier and darker themes in this one might warrant a parental guidance warning. So just fair warning on that.
So maybe if you watch this with your family, check it out before you allow your children to listen.
Are they watching it?
Listening.
Yeah. So yeah, nothing obscene or anything like that, but it's just a little thematically darker and heavier than what we normally would put on here as a family-friendly show. But still PG to PG-13, nothing gnarly. So the story goes that there are 7 gateways to the netherworld. And I'm going to butcher every single one of these names because I am terrible with pronunciations. But the Cape Matapan Caves in Greece, which is rumored to be the home of Hades, god of the dead. The Hekla volcano in Iceland, where covens gather to commune with their undead lord. The bottomless and insatiable chasm known as Lacus Curtius in Rome. The Plutonian at I played Assassin's Creed. I can remember this.
Hierapolis?
Hierapolis. That LIS was alright. It was easy. Yeah. So at Hierapolis in Greece, where to this day birds still drop dead if their flight takes them too near to the noxious vapors that permeate from the portal there. The Fendu City of Ghosts in Chongqing, China, where 2 imperial officials, Yin and Wang, wandered in their quest to become immortal. This I thought was great. Their names, separate, didn't have any sort of nefarious meaning or anything, but their names together, Yin Wang, actually means King of Hell.
Ooh,
yeah,
that's interesting.
That was very interesting. St. Patrick's Purgatory in Lochderg, Ireland, where sojourners would find the end, or rather the beginning of their eternal pilgrimage. And Stull Cemetery in Stull, Kansas, where a wayward priest killed his foreboding lover and their unborn child. It's said that twice a year, on Halloween and on the spring equinox, a seal is lifted from a stairway in a well somewhere in Stull Cemetery. And from 3 a.m. to 4 a.m., the fabric separating our world from the netherworld is so thin that if one would dare descend the steps, they would be drawn into the land of the dead. It is said that the stairway is not long, only a few hundred feet, but that once at the bottom, it would take someone 2 weeks to return to the top, if they were able to do so, though to them it would only seem like a few minutes. There have been those brave enough, or foolish enough, to descend the steps in the past, only to disappear and to be considered missing, and often reported as such, just to return weeks later, wondering why all the commotion and worry, because to them, no time at all had passed. This well is said to be nearly impossible to find, and even if found, would be so nondescript that it would easily be disregarded as just another broken bit of stonework littering the cemetery. There are sparse reports of this well and stairway ever being found, and even fewer reports of it being found on the spring equinox or on Halloween night. But we believe we truly and honestly did just that. But let's not get back to that story just yet. As one might suspect, you wouldn't have this kind of portal on the mortal plane without some level of residual effect. Much of the flora and fauna surrounding the area is in a year-round withered state. Dead trees and bare shrubbery evidence the poison that seems to seep out of the gateway. At the vertex of the cemetery lies the crumbled ruins of the Evangelical Emmanuel Church. The epicenter of all evil can be traced back to this church, or really to the practices of a priest that presided there. It is said that long ago, a priest had a verboten tryst with a parishioner. Theirs was a taboo affair, not only because of the sacred vows taken by the priest to remain celibate, but also because the woman was rumored to be a witch. Though no one had come right out and accused her of such things, it was a well-circulating whisper that drifted in and out of the circles and cliques of the congregation. The priest and his mistress attempted to keep their illicit sins secret, but as such things of forbidden and carnal nature as this often do, what was to be kept unseen soon became all too visible, as the woman discovered that she was with child. Weeks went by as the priest tried to find some way out of this, some way to avoid the inevitable, but he was running out of time as his lover began to show visible signs of carrying a child. His child. The church began to distance themselves not only from her, but from him as well, as the small community started putting things together. Seeing no other choice, the priest bade his followers gather behind the church after Sunday service and confess his sins. He confessed that he had been seduced by a witch, and that this witch was with them even now. With hatred in his eyes, he pointed out his lover and condemned her to death. It didn't take long for the congregation to devolve into a mob, and not long after that, the woman was being dragged off to the west side of the church to a tall, strong tree to be hanged. Long and slender shadows danced around like maddened macabre marionettes across the cemetery grounds as the sun, just starting to set, cast them about, heightening the frenzy and chaos of the fanatical multitude. Shouts and curses and accusations were flung at the helpless woman as she was manhandled and bound with rope. Before nightfall of that very same day, the woman was hung, her body left lifeless and swinging as the men dug a shallow grave next to an old well, and the women and children went about preparing themselves and their homes for a peaceful night's sleep, secure and confident and at ease. Just before 3 a.m, it was done. The woman was buried, the child still in her womb, having been robbed of life by the lies of its father. A stone was placed on the grave that simply read, "Witch," with 2 T's, all capital, WITTCH. It is said that 2 weeks later, on the spring equinox, some nefarious necromantic power seeped into the shallow grave and called to the child. The child was born in the dark and dirt of that shallow grave and clawed its way down, 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 far below, leaving behind it a cursed stairway formed of its pain. Today the stone that simply reads "Witch" can still be found if you look hard enough, but it is now split in 2, having been sundered the night that the child was born unto death. What do you think?
It sounds like a movie.
It really does.
I mean, it's a super fun story, but okay, I do have an issue. So 2 weeks later, the child was broken free. A baby cannot crawl out of a grave.
Huh?
At 2 weeks old.
Well, it can if it's a devil baby. Are you kidding me?
I guess I would find it more believable if it was like 2 years later.
But it's a devil baby.
Well, why is the baby a devil?
Because it was born of sin, and it was born to death.
Okay.
Haven't you ever, I don't know, watched a scary movie or read a comic book or read Stephen King? This stuff all makes sense. You just have to put it together.
So did you find any pictures of the
devil
witch?
baby?
No, of the witch like headstone.
No, I didn't actually look it up because, spoiler alert, we found it.
You found the tombstone?
Yes, but that's later. No spoilers. So this kind of goes along with what you were saying. Kind of sounds like a movie. This is a pretty dark story, and one that has caught the attention of more than a few noted celebrities. It is said that Kurt Cobain made it a mission to visit Stull Cemetery when Nirvana played in Lawrence, Kansas. Ariana Grande claims to have visited and left in such a rush, frightened by her experiences with the smell of sulfur still burning in her nostrils. And Slash from Guns N' Roses has a production company that even produced a film called Nothing Left to Fear, based on Stull. And also, as you know, one of our favorite shows, Supernatural, ended season 5 with a battle between the Archangel Michael and Lucifer in Stull Cemetery. Although I read that it was actually filmed in Vancouver, so kind of ruins it a little bit there.
Yeah, but it definitely shows that like they know of the legend of Stull.
It's world renowned. It's a very well known legend. But is the story itself enough to garner the kind of worldwide notoriety the Stull Cemetery has? Maybe, but I think there's a little bit more to it, and I can personally attest that there are at least some weird and unexplainable phenomena that occur there. Take, for example, the persistent story that says if you hold 2 glass bottles perpendicular to each other and throw them against where the northwest side of the church would have been, because remember, there are just ruins there now, that no matter how hard you throw them, and no matter what you throw them against, they will not break. I can personally attest to this one. I'm not proud to say it. Well, no, I guess I'm proud to say it because we did pick them up. But the night that we went, we did indeed bring 2 glass bottles to test this out. We held 2 bottles up in the shape of a cross and then threw them hard and multiple times against the fallen stones, and every single time we were met with a dull thud instead of a shrill, shattering crash. We could not get those bottles to break. Now, I believe this is supposed to be because of the disturbance caused by the 2 worlds colliding, causing unnatural results from natural actions. I don't know. But all I know is that we could not break those bottles.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I wish back in 2003 was like when we all had cell phones.
Right.
With cameras. Because it would have been so cool if you guys had video recorded that whole evening.
Yeah, I really wish we could have, or had some GoPros strapped on our heads or something, because it would have been so much fun.
Because I was too much of a chicken to go.
I know you. Yeah.
So I missed out on all the fun.
Oh well, you got to stay home, and what'd you do?
I slept on the couch while
a couple of guys,
other guys played video games at night.
How about when the 4 walls of the church were still standing? It's told that on a rainy night, one could stand within the walls and not feel the rain. This was said to have been because of a curse placed on the grounds by the coven that the woman who was hung belonged to. And while I can't actually confirm that one, I can say that when we went, the walls were still there, although not really standing per se. And when we went inside, we could no longer feel the breeze that was kicking around right outside, which really everything was outside because it was just ruins at this point. But that I can tell you we did witness. We felt a shift in the atmosphere outside of the 4 walls of the structure and inside the 4 walls of the structure.
So it was like perfectly still?
Yeah.
Inside?
Completely still.
That is
which just
creepy.
Freaked us out even more after the bottles. We were starting to get a little tripped out at that point. So next, let's talk about the tree. A tall and imposing pine that until 1998 stood healthy and strong, all except for a single outstretched limb that seemed to not have grown at all over the years. This limb was the same limb that the woman and countless other witches were hung on, and still had the indentation of a rope around it, until it, along with the rest of the tree, was cut down in 98 to dissuade ghost hunters and thrill seekers from climbing it and hurting themselves. So that's pretty crazy that this whole tree, over hundreds of years, grew and grew into a mighty strong tall pine, but that one limb that was about 7 feet off the ground never grew, and it still had the indentation of the rope around it.
I wonder what they did with that wood, because that could be like a haunted tree limb.
Oh, it is. And let's not forget the prerequisite strange or unexplained death stories that seem to go hand in hand with any legend worth its weight in blood. The young boy that was accidentally burned alive by his father on a road aptly named Devil's Road, which can be found on old city maps in the Stull archives, but doesn't appear to be there any longer, or the old man who hung himself on the very same pine that hundreds of years ago was used to hang witches. Needless to say, Stull is steeped in the dark lore of death and evil, but still, does that really mean that it is an extraplanar portal to the underworld, a hellmouth in the heartland? Well, the Pope certainly thinks so. It is rumored that when the Pope or the Cittadino Vaticanos, or Vatican citizens, travel in the States, they will ensure that the plane's flight paths avoid flying over the area. Had you ever heard that?
I had heard that.
Yeah, that's a pretty interesting one.
Okay, so since I did not get to experience this firsthand, can you give us kind of an idea of what the city of Stull looked like?
Well, it's actually not really considered a city. It's considered unincorporated. I don't really know what that means, but I'll tell you what, it was crazy. I mean, you blink and you miss it, literally. Like, we were sitting on top of the hill that goes into Stull on Stull Road, and there are seriously 3 houses on the left, the couple buildings I was telling you about. Then is this little side road, and the other side of the side road are 2 more houses. That's it. And I mean, you could almost throw like a baseball from one end to the other.
So, do they have the patrols there just because of the interest in that area?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think a lot of it stems from how done with it all the people who live there are.
Oh yeah,
right.
I'm sure.
Yeah, and apparently I do think that a lot of people have gone in there and vandalized. I read about tombstones being broken, glass bottles all over the place. So yeah, if I lived there and if across the street was a constant party, I'd be pretty upset too. So yeah, I don't know if they were just if they were deputies or if they were just hired security, but a fun rumor that I never really got into on this was that a lot of people report being chased out by angry demons. Well, right, yeah, being actually chased out of Stull by maybe the ancestral spirits of those buried in the cemetery. More than likely, and what was actually reported was there's just some good old boys in pickups that just drive around and we'll just chase anybody out.
People out.
Right. So either way, that was pretty funny, but I didn't really go down that road.
All right. So did you guys see anybody else while you were there? Did you have anybody chasing you out?
No, other than the patrol and his I assume canine. I don't think it was just his his pup from home, but no, just the patrol and his canine, and that was it.
Okay. All right, let's get back to your story.
Okay. So as we crept our way up to the church ruins, the muted cast of the moon's glow filtered everything in a strange, silvery dreamscape. We couldn't help but stifle a laugh at every twig snapped or leaf crunched underfoot, not to mention the subtle, all too quiet noises some were making in an attempt to alert the guard, knowing good and well that he'd never hear them, but had us all wondering what if at the same time. We had obviously opted for no flashlights, as that would have no doubt alerted the patrol to our location, so the moonlight was really it as far as being able to see. There were no lights inside the cemetery, and those on the outside seemed to not hold much sway within. So, giggling like little kids, with visibility low, a guard about 200 yards in front of us, and adrenaline pumping so hard that we were either on the verge of a laughing fit or a panic attack, we inched forward. We began investigating the area up on the hill where the old church used to sit. We were immediately drawn to it, as it was the largest structure and easily the most foreboding. Most of the cemetery was in decent shape, headstones intact and lawn and walkways well manicured. But the area on the hill was a different story. Most of the grass and shrubbery here was dead, and what wasn't dead was overgrown and choking in its conquest of dominance, vines and moss mostly. I've already told you about our experiment with the bottles, how we could not get them to break. That freaked us out, so much so that it almost sent us running back to the van right then and there. But our mission was not to break glass. Our mission was to locate the well. It was not an uncomfortable morning, and under any other circumstances would have been fine, bordering on pleasant. But the moisture from the fog seemed to seep into our clothing just a little too much, and the constant vigilance it took to keep tabs on Barney Fife made things just a little bit cumbersome. It took us a little over an hour to find it. Not the well, but the stone. Split directly in two, it read WIT on one half and TCH on the other. This was it. This was the stone of the woman who was hanged all those centuries before. And if it was here, the well had to be too. Frantically, we all began looking. Bolstered by our find and adrenaline somewhat abated at this point, we must have let our guard down, because before long we heard a bark. Not the random bark of a domesticated dog gossiping to other domesticated dogs across fences. This was a baying, the trained baying of a dog that had caught a scent. Our scent, we knew it. Torn between bolting for the van, knowing that we had little to no familiarity with the landscape or any hidden rabbit holes, stumps, or stones it might have set in wait for us, we knew time was short, or staying to search for just a few more minutes, we chose to stay. We had to. Desperately, we searched, whispering excited shouts of "here it is" and "over there." Finally, barely audible over the ever-approaching baying, one of our friends, we'll call him Bob for anonymity, shouted that he had found it, apparently deciding that the time for stealth was over, and that the patrol guard knew at least something was up over here. Bob had decided to go with a shout to ensure that everyone had heard him. We all convened by a large tree stump, expectantly and trepidatiously, wide eyes asking questions our throats could not as we gasped for breath. And there, buried beneath centuries of overgrowth, low to the ground, stones broken and fallen all around, barely visible, like the eyes of a crocodile just breaching the surface of still waters. Small and unassuming, but with the promise of a disastrous and violent end, was a stone seal, or a door. It looked like a manhole cover, but made entirely of stone. It was besieged by stacks of stone that had been precisely measured and cut. There were no distinct markings on it decrying what it was, yet it couldn't have been anything else.
So you guys found the stairs.
We found the well.
You couldn't open it?
Right. We didn't have time to open it. And look, I would have gone down them stairs.
Oh, I know. You guys left that evening with a mission.
Yeah, it would have happened. And I'm tough.
But of course, if you had gone down those stairs, that could have been the end of you.
Well, or the beginning, depending on what kind of powers I came back with. So as we were all just sitting there gaping at it, we heard a fence slam shut and knew that our time was up. We bolted north and then east around the other side of the ruins in an attempt to create as much distance and as many obstacles between us and the guard, or really us and the dog. We ran for all we were worth. Low-hanging limbs and cobwebs decorating our faces with angry red scratches and sticky silks. We were young and relatively confident that we could outrun the rent-a-cop, but we knew the dog was gaining on us. Now, none of us were really athletes, and I don't know if you've ever been in a full-on sprint for your life kind of run, but let me tell you, your legs stop working the way you want them to really quick. We all took our fair share of tumbles, and one of us lost our ball cap, but we kept going. The fence was in sight, and just like that, 1, 2, 3, 4, and all 5 of us were over. Bob hopped in the driver's seat as the rest of us dove head first through the side door, while most of us made it through. One of our buds, he was the chunk from Goonies of our group.
Oh, yeah.
You know who I'm talking about.
Perfect description.
Yep, love him. Hilarious, lovable, a bit rotund, and clumsy as heck. So Chunk, we'll call him, brought up the rear.
He's going to love that.
I know, but he knows. I mean,
he owns his identity.
Exactly, and he's awesome. He was the last of the van and leaped more upward than forward and slammed his head on the top of the van, kind of where the doors open. And I'm talking creamed it. It rocked the whole van. I really hope somebody saw it because it had to have looked hilarious. But none of us were laughing. Dude was out cold. It was hilarious, right? And you can just picture it laid out flat on the street right there. So a few of us leaned down, pulled hard as Bob turned the engine over. We got him in just as Bob punched it. I had never had any respect for minivans before that night, but I swear that van peeled out, burning all kinds of rubber, leaving Fido and Barney in a cloud of smoke. That's it. That's my story.
That's a great story.
Yeah, it is. And
I really couldn't remember any details.
Well, neither could I, but I will tell you that this story is 100% unembellished and 100% factual.
Well, because if anybody knows Micah, they know that he never over-exaggerates or makes things up as he tells a story.
Right. No, my stories are fact only. No fluff. No, I ain't got time for all that. I gotta set things right. So that is exactly how it happened, all the way down to the minivan. I guarantee you it was a minivan
or a red Tahoe.
Nah, it was a minivan. So yeah, there you have it, Stull, Kansas. That is my story.
I just love that you were able to bring your personal take to the story as opposed to just going off of others that you found.
Right. Yeah, that was a lot of fun to
read.
And
I'm sure us living in the Midwest, I'm sure there's lots of people that we know that probably may have ventured out to Stull to see what it was all about.
Yeah. Actually, I told Jones I was doing this, and he said we should go up there tomorrow.
I think I'm busy tomorrow.
Yeah, I think I'm too old to do that tomorrow.
There's no way you can outrun anything at this point.
Don't be mean. Okay, well, so I guess that's it. We hope you enjoyed the episode. It was a lot of fun reliving that night. We want to take a moment here and just say thank you to everyone who is giving us a chance and listening and downloading and following. You guys are great. Thank you to everyone who is following what we're doing on Instagram and engaging with us there. Make sure you go to our Instagram page and get signed up for our free giveaway. You'll automatically receive that bookmark and get signed up for our mug. Go look at the pictures. They're pretty cool looking. The giveaway ends, again, Friday, November 13th, and the winner will be announced that night during that episode. Special Friday the 13th episode. Very excited about that one, too. Make sure you follow us and leave a review on your podcast player of choice. And... The heck, girl? send us your recommendations. If you have a favorite legend or one that you're curious about, or if whatever state you live in, you're curious to see what's around, give us your recommendations. We'd be happy to look into it and present it in the next episode. That it?
I think so.
Okay. So as always, I'm Micah.
And I'm Amanda.
And this has been the Great American Urban Legend Podcast. Did I say podcast? As always, I'm Micah.
And I'm Amanda.
And this has been the Great American Urban Legend Podcast. Good night. And the ruins of the evangelical... And the ruins of the... Ooh, that's a hard one. And the ruins of the evangelical...